Over the last few years, the tech industry has laid off hundreds of thousands of people. Meta has gone through multiple rounds of layoff. Microsoft cut thousands of employees. Google and Amazon have continued cutting teams, and this year alone, we've already seen another wave of layoffs across the industry. The explanation you hear most often is pretty simple. Companies overhired during the pandemic, the economy changed, and now AI is allowing them to operate with fewer people. And that explanation makes sense. Except when you look at how many people these companies still employ, something doesn't quite add up. Alphabet finished 2025 with around 190,000 employees, putting it close to its all-time high. Microsoft ended its last fiscal year with 228,000 employees, which is basically unchanged from the year before, despite laying off roughly 15,000 people. Even Amazon, after years of layoffs, still has a workforce that is remarkably close to its previous highs. So, if big tech has spent the past 4 years laying people off, why do these companies still employ roughly the same number of people? And more importantly, for us as software engineers, where did all those jobs actually go? To understand that, we need to first look at how we got here. In the past decade or so, software engineers had an extraordinary amount of bargaining power, especially during the pandemic. Companies were hiring aggressively, compensation had exploded, remote work had become normal, and experienced engineers routinely had multiple companies competing for them. If you didn't like your job, there was a decent chance that you could leave and get paid significantly more somewhere else. This gave software engineers a lot of leverage. They could demand remote work, better compensation, and more flexibility because companies knew how difficult it was to replace them. And for the longest time, getting a job at Google, Microsoft, Meta, or one of the other major tech companies felt like winning the career lottery. The compensation was great, you got to work on interesting projects, the benefits were great, there were strong career opportunities, and perhaps most importantly, there was a level of job security that was unusual for jobs paying that much money. Many software engineers spent 10, 15, and even 20 years at the same company. Well, I spent more than a decade at Microsoft, and there was definitely a feeling that if you were good at your job and wanted to stay, you could build a very long career there. But eventually, interest rates increased, growth slowed down, and companies began looking more closely at their organizations. Some realized they hired too aggressively or invested in teams and projects that no longer matched their priorities. And to be clear, that correction was not necessarily wrong. Companies had legitimate reasons to become more efficient. But the market correction also changed the relationship between companies and their employees. Hiring slowed down, layoffs became common, return to office policies started appearing, and suddenly leaving your job was not nearly as easy as it had been the few years that were earlier than that. You could argue that companies may have intentionally used RTO as a workforce reduction mechanism, and there are actually executives admitting that in surveys that this was sometimes the goal. But of course, this doesn't mean that big tech broadly used RTO as a secret layoff program to reduce employee leverage, and it certainly doesn't prove that this was the motivation behind the entire layoff cycle. But regardless of the true reason behind the layoffs, one outcome is clear. Software engineers today simply do not have the bargaining power they had back in 2021. While companies were correcting the overhiring that happened during the pandemic, another major shift was happening at the same time. AI was changing how software was built. And the reason AI became such a major factor in this discussion is because the productivity gains were real. That changed the economics of software development. And this is why many companies that announced layoffs were also aggressively investing in AI. The same companies reducing teams in some areas were also competing for AI researchers and software engineers. Oh, one quick thing I want to mention while we're in the topic of AI-driven changes is that the heavy use of AI within modern systems has also introduced entirely new attack surfaces that most software engineers and even security professionals haven't really dealt with before. And that's where today's sponsor, TryHackMe, can help. TryHackMe is a hands-on cybersecurity training platform with more than 8 million users, and they recently launched an entirely new learning path specifically for AI security. Everything runs directly on your browser, so instead of just watching videos about these attacks, you actually get to perform them yourself. For example, I tried their prompt injection room, where they give you access to CalBot, an AI calendar assistant that has access to the CEO's email address, but has been explicitly instructed not to reveal it. I tried asking for the CEO's email directly, directly, and obviously it refused. So I tried a few other prompts and even used some social pressure to get it to leak the email, but it still refused. However, I realized that I can schedule meetings with the CEO. So I asked it to schedule a meeting with him and give me the meeting details. And there we go. We just got an AI agent to leak confidential information that it was explicitly instructed to protect. And this is just one of the labs in the AI security learning path. It also covers things like jailbreaking, data poisoning, and AI supply chain attacks. And you're actually working against live targets instead of just learning the theory. You can start the AI security learning path for free using my link in the description or in the pinned comment. And if you want access to the full platform, use code UTSAVAI to get 25% off an annual subscription. Thanks again to TryHackMe for sponsoring this video. Okay, so back to what I was saying about AI-driven workforce restructuring. While frequent layoffs and restructuring can improve a company's financial reports, it also has some very adverse side effects that have begun surfacing within the past few years. See, for the longest time, getting a job at one of the major tech companies came with a level of stability that was unusual for high-paying jobs. Even though these companies were always competitive environments, many engineers believed that if they performed well and continued growing, they could build a long career there. But the repeated round of layoffs has changed that perception. When you watch thousands of perfectly capable people lose their jobs across multiple rounds of restructuring, it changes how you think about your own relationship with your employer. Even if you survive the layoffs, you know that being a good employee does not necessarily guarantee that you will survive the next round. And there is also some interesting research into what happens inside organizations when employees start seeing the people around them leave. Workforce analytics company Visier analyzed more than 17 million anonymized employee records to study something called turnover contagion, and found that after one employee resigns or is laid off, the probability of additional employees on the same team leaving increases by 7 to 25% depending on the size of the team. So there is a cost to constantly restructuring your workforce. Companies may save money or redirect resources in the short term, but they also create a workspace that feels less secure and becomes more willing to leave when an opportunity appears. But there's another cost that may be even harder to replace, and that is the career ladder. So one of the biggest changes in the software engineering market recently has been what happened to entry-level opportunities. Reports suggest that entry-level hiring has collapsed by somewhere between 55 to 65% at major tech companies since the layoff era began. Again, there are logical reasons for this. A lot of work traditionally given to junior engineers overlaps with the things AI coding tools are beginning to get very good at, like writing boilerplate code, generating tests, making small changes, explaining unfamiliar code, and fixing relatively straightforward bugs. But the real problem is that every experienced engineer was once a junior engineer. Nobody graduates from college as a senior engineer with 10 years of experience operating at production-grade systems. Somebody has to hire you before you know what you're doing, give you increasingly difficult problems, and allow you to accumulate that experience that eventually makes you valuable. So if every company decides that it only wants experienced engineers, eventually this industry will run out of experienced engineers because there's no career ladder. And we are already seeing that at least one major technology company acknowledged this problem. IBM recently announced its plan to triple entry-level hiring in the United States in 2026. IBM's Chief Human Resource Officer explained that reasoning in the Charter AI Summit by asking what happens 3 to 5 years from now if every company stops investing in entry-level talent today. And this is essentially the career ladder problem in one question. And as a result of all of this, companies are considering some of the workforce decisions they made during this transition. While AI is absolutely changing the economics of software development, replacing people is not as simple as replacing tasks. In 2025, workforce planning company OrgView surveyed more than 1,100 C-suite executives and senior business leaders across several countries. 39% said their organization had made employees redundant as a result of deploying AI. Of that group, 55% admitted that they had made the wrong decisions about those redundancies. And OrgView followed that research again in 2026. This time, it found that 32% of organizations that had made redundancies based on expected AI cost savings had already rehired employees because those savings did not materialize. And I think it is important to be careful about what we conclude from data like this. The lesson is not that AI is not working. AI is working extremely well. It is changing how engineers build software, and it is absolutely changing the economics of hiring. However, making an engineer more productive is not necessarily the same thing as eliminating the engineer. If AI makes every software engineer 30% more productive, a company could theoretically employ fewer engineers and build the same amount of software. But I think what some companies are realizing is that they could roughly keep the same number of engineers, maintain high morale and job security, and build significantly more software. And when you look at the fact that many of these companies still have engineering organizations close to their previous highs after years of layoffs, it suggests that we are seeing a combination of both these ideas. Companies are becoming more selective about where they put people and are expecting a lot more from each employee. But at the same time, they're also learning that some of the knowledge, experience, and judgment inside an organization is much harder to replace than they initially expected. And that brings us to the original question. So where did the software engineering jobs go? The layoffs were real, and they had real consequences. Some teams were eliminated, some projects were canceled, some roles genuinely became less necessary as companies changed their priorities and adopted new tools. But a lot of those jobs simply did not disappear. The bigger story is much more complicated than AI replacing software engineers. The industry went through a major correction after years of overinvestment during the pandemic. Companies needed to become more efficient, reduce unnecessary spending, and restructure around a new reality where AI could significantly increase productivity. And at the same time, that transition had its trade-offs. Software engineers lost some of the leverage they had during the pandemic. The perception of job security at big tech changed. Entry-level engineers faced one of the toughest hiring markets we have seen in years, and companies discovered that replacing experienced engineers and rebuilding their knowledge is not as straightforward as it originally appeared. So today, companies increasingly want engineers who can understand large systems, make architectural decisions, communicate clearly, understand the business problem that they are solving, and also use AI to multiply everything they already know how to do. And I think that is ultimately the most important takeaway. The jobs changed, they moved towards different priorities and came with a different set of expectations. But for software engineers who are willing to adapt, understand these changes, and continue building valuable skills, those opportunities are still there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.